marketing of advertising that actually attracts really good quality candidates to you in the first place. So over the next 30 minutes or so, Mark's going to be sharing with you some really interesting insights into why advertising is failing and what you can do about it to produce world-class advertisements that attract better quality candidates to your organisation in the first place. Just a reminder, if you want to tweet, our Twitter handle, you'll see at the bottom of each slide there, is @Peoplelogica, and we'll also encourage you afterwards, if you're not already, to follow us on our LinkedIn page @Peoplelogica. But with no further ado, I'm going to hand over now to Mark Purbrick for the webinar. Over to you, Mark.
Thanks, James, and welcome everybody, and good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. As James quite rightly says, the war for talent is on, and can I tell you, it is a war that is never going to end. So for you to secure the best employees in the future and the best candidates, you're going to have to fight for them, and it's as simple as that. What we'll go through today is essentially, sorry, as soon as we get this going, I want to take you through the purpose of the attraction process, the challenges that all of us have with the candidate pool, the current candidate pool, the types of attraction strategies that you can use, the traditional job advertisements and where their strengths and weaknesses are, and then how you can improve the way you advertise your jobs by using targeted job advertisements. The aim by the end of this is to hopefully provide you all with some insight into how you can give yourself an unfair advantage in the war for talent by attracting the best quality people to start off with. Because one thing is absolute: you cannot hire the best employee for the role or the best candidate for the role if that candidate has not applied for your role in the first place. Too many people, and whether they be hiring managers, whether they be recruiters, doesn't matter who it is, they do not put enough emphasis and enough focus on the attraction process, whether you're using job ads or whatever else. So hopefully we'll help you out with this. So off we go. The purpose of the attraction strategy is really, really simple. It is to recruit a high-performing, highly productive and fully engaged employee. It is as simple as that. Everything you do with regarding your attraction strategy and then your selection strategy is to recruit a future high-performing, highly productive and fully engaged employee. That's what we're after. And keep in mind that the studies all show that within Australia and also within the US, is managers only rate about 25% of their employees, of their direct reports, as being top performers, about 50% as being adequate to very good, and 25% as being substandard, where they are not meeting the lowest expectations for the role. So they're pretty scary statistics. So what we want to do is increase the number of top performers you have, so increase that 25% to far higher than that, and to reduce the number of substandard employees, so reduce that 25% at the bottom end. So what are the challenges of the candidate pool? At the end of the day, it is all about the pool you fish in for your candidates and the barriers that you create and the barriers that will prevent people from applying for your job that may well be future high performers. So if we start off with the full candidate pool, which is a whole 12 million working aged individuals within Australia, and then what we do is we then remove the 25%, so that 25% I was talking about before, the fully engaged employees that are currently exceptionally happy within their roles. They're not looking for jobs. So there's a different attraction strategy we can use for them, and we'll show you that later on with one of the examples. But we take that 25% out because the reality is they're not looking at your SEEK, they're not looking at your job ads. We then remove 67%, 2/3 of the passive employees, that middle 50%, because 2/3 of them are not looking to change jobs either. They're generally quite happy where they are, and they're not looking to change. So at the moment, by just removing those two groups, you can see that we've taken out well over half of the candidate pool. And then we remove the 20% that you have precluded due to barriers that you have created. So that could be the requirement for tertiary qualifications or the requirement for X number of years of experience. What you need to look at, especially with tertiary qualifications, is if legally they don't need to have the tertiary qualifications, then do they have to have it to do the job? because the belief that only people with tertiary qualifications are intelligent and the ones that don't have it aren't is obviously false. There are a huge number of people out there that have never started or completed a tertiary course that have the intellect and the competencies for your roles. They just don't have a piece of paper on the wall. For many roles, and we see it a lot where people say you need to have tertiary qualifications, the question is why? Why do they need to? And the same with number of years experience is sometimes people put far more years experience required in there than what is actually truly required. One of the best ways to actually measure that is if you had an employee within your company that you'd known for 3 to 5 years or so, and therefore you knew pretty well, and then you had a role that became vacant in the organisation, and you would consider putting that person in even though they don't have the tertiary qualifications or they don't have the years experience, then the reality is if you're happy to put them into the role, then you must be happy to put somebody outside of the organisation into the role that doesn't have that experience and qualifications, as long as they have the abilities, the attributes and the behaviours. And the behaviours are a very strong part of this, and we'll talk about that later on as well. And then we're down to 21.5% of the full candidate pool. And over half of that remaining pool are currently unemployed, long-term unemployed, and a lot of them not actually actively really looking for a role. And then you've got the actively disengaged employees in their current role that in a lot of those cases you probably wouldn't want their attitude and behaviours in your organisation anyway. So we're down to around about 10% of the candidate pool. So although we started with the 12 million Australians, you're down to about 1.2 million out of the 12 million that you're actually offering your job to. And that's not very good percentages. We need to increase the candidate pool, and we need to increase the quality of the candidates we're going for. And the reality is we don't just want to appeal to people that are currently unhappy in their role or looking for a job for whatever reason. We actually want to try and target those people that are currently very happy with their existing employer, but you can offer them a better future for them, whether it's a better career or better opportunities, or they'll just enjoy your job a lot more. And at the end of the day, enjoyment engagement is one of the highest drivers in all of this. And we know from studies that any increase in employee engagement in an organisation will increase profitability, revenue, and customer service levels. And every CEO will want those three things every year. And all you have to do is increase employee engagement. So what are the different types of attraction strategies? Well, there's headhunting or search, and the advantages of search is that you can target individuals that are not actively looking for a new role, and those individuals generally are targeted and tapped on the shoulder by the search company because they're in the same industry, in the same sort of role. It ensures an alignment of experience, skills and knowledge because they are purely searching on experience, skills and knowledge. The disadvantages are it's generally quite expensive and does not ensure the behavioural and cultural fit to your organisation. The reality is they may be a fantastic fit to their current role, but that does not mean they're going to be a great fit to your role. The other side of it is they may actually not be all that happy in their current role, and they may not be happy again in your role. So while it does target the people that have the experience, skills and knowledge, it doesn't target the fit, the behavioural side and the cultural side, which we know is very, very important. The second type is poaching, where you essentially approach an employee from a competitor organisation to move from them to you. So in the same sort of role, and the advantages for that is it's generally low cost. You're approaching them because within your the knowledge within your company is you know who to approach, you know who are your best competitors out there in the marketplace as far as employees are concerned. And it ensures alignment of experience, skills and knowledge, again, because they're currently doing the same sort of job as what you want them to do for you. The disadvantages, however, are that it does target a very small part of the candidate pool. It's only the people that you know out there. It does not ensure the behavioural and cultural fit in many of the cases. The individual does not deliver to expectations. We talk to a lot of organisations that have poached people over the years, and you may well be some of them, where where you get somebody from another organisation, you're expecting great things out of them, and yet unfortunately they just do not meet your expectations. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Part of it is that even though, you know, let's say they're a salesperson, they're selling the same product or service as what you do, but your management style may be very different, your cultural environment may be very different, your clients may be slightly different, so the environment's different, which means that while they thrived in their current organisation's environment, they may not thrive in yours. Once again, it all comes down to that behavioural side and the cultural side. And then we have peer recruiting. One of the organisations that we've seen is doing this exceptionally well is Boost Juice. And peer recruiting is where the organisation encourages and rewards their existing employees to essentially convince their friends to come and work for the organisation. So it does have some great advantages. It is low cost because they're essentially just rewarding their employees, and in some cases they're paying their employees $200, $300, $400, $500 to bring in a new employee. And it ensures an alignment of culture because generally people who are friends with other people have the same sort of values that they have. The disadvantages, however, is that it does not ensure alignment of experience, skills and knowledge. Just because you're a friend to somebody doesn't mean they have the same experience, skills and knowledge. It does not ensure the behavioural fit, and it targets, once again, a very small part of the candidate pool. The main attraction strategy that most organisations use are job advertisements, so the traditional job advertisement. And the traditional job advertisement, as we know, has who the organisation is, what they want the person to do, and then how to apply for them. So the advantages for it is it's very easy, and because you just use Seek or LinkedIn and put up an ad. I think, unfortunately, because of that, we'll see some of the examples we have. Because it's easy, no one puts effort in, and the ads do not reflect that the organisation is a quality organisation to have a job with. And it targets most individuals that are actively looking for a job. Most people who are looking for a job will be looking on Seek or wherever. So all of the ones looking for a job, you're pretty good at targeting them. Not very good at targeting the ones that aren't looking for a job. The disadvantages, as I said, they don't target candidates that are fully engaged in their current employ, so the ones that aren't looking for a job. You get absolutely inundated with applications that have no relevance. I don't quite understand with Seek why they have the automated responses and things like that, because all it does is inundate you in that first half an hour that you put an ad up with applications generally for people that do not have the experience, the knowledge, the skills, nothing that you've advertised for, do they have that. So it obviously puts a huge amount of workload on your hiring managers or your HR department to sift through all of those ones to find the applications that are worth looking at. But most importantly, traditional job advertisements, they do not ensure a behavioural and cultural fit. What they're doing is they're generally focused towards the skills and knowledge that people have, not towards their behavioural and cultural fit to the organisation. So let's have a look at some job advertisements and the way they're put together. Generally, most traditional job advertisements, as I just said, it's all about the company. So there's a paragraph about how great the company is, which you still need because it's all about giving applicants the comfort that they're applying for a role with a solid company, a company that's going to be around for years to come. But it's all about the competencies the company requires and the qualifications that the company requires. It doesn't take into account the organisation's culture in most cases, and certainly not the character of the person they're looking for, and certainly not the behavioural traits and the interests, the occupational interests that the employee has. So let's look at some examples, and we've downloaded these over the last couple of days. So in Seek, you can see this ad here is, once again, it's a fairly typical and a reasonably well structured traditional advert in that it has about the company and gives some comfort as to how long it's been around. It then goes into what academic qualifications you need to have to do this job and any other qualifications you need to have. And then what it looks at is what you'll be doing in the role. So essentially the position to stand into the ad. The problem with all of this is if you're applying for a QSE manager and you know exactly what a QSE manager is, and that's the job you're applying for, you actually know what the job does. Do you need to be told in an ad what the job does? Let's look at another one. Internal sales consultant. You can see here for the company, not inspiring at all. You know, probably most people, and certainly quality applicants that were looking at this role, once they got to the company where you've got, 7 words there to describe the company, how many quality candidates would actually apply for this role? They have essentially paid money to put an ad up that no quality candidates will apply for, because why would they when you look at this? And once again, it's all about what the company wants and what the candidate, you know, has to be like as far as the broad brushstrokes of what they are. Then we look at this ad here for an HR and recruitment advisor. Once again, the description for the organisation, the description for the role and the criteria is incredibly brief. If you were looking at this and you were an experienced and quality HR and recruitment advisor, would you apply for this role? The chances are you probably wouldn't. Which, once again, is all about, if you're not attracting the best quality people to your ad, then how are you going to select them in the first place? And then this one here, so this was a 6-figure role for a general manager. If you were looking at this and you were looking looking for a general manager role, a GM role, the chances are I don't think anybody would apply for this role, because what do you get out of it? You have no idea how solid the company is. You really have no idea the extent of the role. You have no idea of what experience you need. It is really not doing anything. The person who has put this together has really just put in the barest minimum of what's there, and the result will be that they won't get quality candidates applying. So how do we change that around? And we have been now using targeted job advertisements now for well over 5 or 6 years. We still need the part about the company, because that's very important, as I said before. You've got to give that security that the company's going to be around for a long time, that it has history and it can be trusted. You've got to have a little bit about the role and more about what sort of impact you can have in the role. So how rewarding the role will be for you. And then a big part of it is, what's in it for me? So, you know, what am I going to get out of it as a candidate? And the other part is, will I be successful? How do I know that this role will be a role that I will be successful in? Because I can tell you, nearly everybody, whenever they apply for a role, whenever they accept a role, is they want to be successful. So let's have a look at some examples. So this is for a global HR manager. You can see here that it has in the first paragraph all about the organisation and how trusted they are for 4.8 million students in over 18,000 schools. The next paragraph then is all about, I guess, the value set. So our people are the most important asset. In fact, we believe the value of our human capital is greater than the value of our balance sheet. So it's showing that this organisation is very much about their human capital. And then the next part is, to be a successful global HR manager in our team, you'll not only need to demonstrate at least 5 years of HR director/manager experience, you'll need to demonstrate past success developing confident people managers and courageous leaders. It is showing the person that this role is all about using your skills to create an amazing leadership team and an organisation that underpins that. But most importantly is the next bit, which is, in addition to the required experience, you will, and you'll see there, be motivated by the competitive entrepreneurial world of management, jump at the chance to help others, demonstrate patience when communicating complex data. What it does is it is essentially saying to the reader, if you are like this, then come and apply for our role, because we potentially have a role that you will be a champion in. We're answering that what's in it for me question, and also, how will I know I'm going to be successful? In this case, for this role as well, there was a focus by the organisation that really wanted to put the ad in front of people that were perfectly happy in their current role. So what we then put together for them was this very small ad, and this is far bigger than what it was. This went into the Sydney Morning Herald on a Saturday morning. It was in the front 7 pages. It was on about page 3 or 5, I think it was, from memory. It was a small ad. It was about half the size of what that is there on the screen. But you can see what it's doing is, we're trying to attract the attention of anybody reading the paper that is a global HR manager, for them to then have a look at the role on Seek and get more details. Now, I can tell you for this role is that the person who was eventually very successful in the role, this is where they saw the job. They were perfectly happy with their employer they were with before, and in the end, through the interview process, we convinced them that 3P was by far a better opportunity for them in the future. So we ended up getting an amazingly great candidate, an amazingly great new employee by targeting people that actually weren't looking for a job. We need to think outside the square. So when you're advertising your roles, don't just think of Seek, don't just think of LinkedIn. Think of where the people that you want to attract to the role, where they will be looking. And at the end of the day, yes, this costs a little bit more. It costs an extra, $2,000 or $3,000 or whatever it is to put the ad in the Sydney Morning Herald. But $2,000 or $3,000 for a role like this is nothing for the benefit the organisation gets for getting a great performer in the first place. So how do we do that? So how do we actually identify those characteristics? Well, just got an example performance model here. So we essentially build a role benchmark for the role, and we can do that in two ways, and that is by assessing proven high performers, or by having the manager or the managers that understand what they want in the role to complete an online job analysis survey. What it results in is a graphical representation of the role, as you can see here. So you can see here for the cognitive skills, for the thinking style, is we needed somebody that had very high learning index, very high numeric skills and verbal skills. In the energy level, it was more where somebody was more of a multitasker than they were somebody that was patient, methodical, cross the T's, dot the I's, which is more down the left-hand side. They were more assertive. Manageability, they're low in manageability, so more innovative, think outside the square, always questioning the way things are done so that you can come up with new processes and new ways of doing it. We want this role, for this role to be somebody that would challenge the norm, challenge the sacred cows. And then you can see, high decisive, far more objective in the way they're thinking. So just to give you an example, in the interests, which is very important because this is an insight into the employee engagement, is we wanted somebody first up that was very high in people service, so they love helping people, with a high in enterprising, so they enjoy the cut and thrust of management, and creative, where they actually enjoy the creative side. What then we get out of that role benchmark is a description of what the beast looks like. It is these descriptions that we can then use in those job ads, in those targeted job ads. So we essentially take these descriptions and use the key ones within the job ad, which then attracts the right candidates in, and then obviously then also used in the screening and the interview process, because it is easier to interview somebody across the table thinking of these descriptors than interviewing across the table and just having the position description in front, which is what the job does, not what the type of person is. So that's one of the ways to do it. There are other ways you can do it by, you can just use a survey of your managers to find out what they believe are the attributes of the role. It works to some degree, probably not quite as accurate as this. So here's another example. So this is for a New South Wales operations manager. Once again, you can see the first paragraph is about how secure the company is. The second paragraph then is what experience they'll need to have, and for this case is they need to be accomplished operations manager with a proven track record of driving organisational growth. So we wanted an entrepreneurial person. And then to be successful in the role, once again, using those descriptors again, be very good at explaining data to others, respond effectively to demands on your time, but most comfortable in more relaxed environment. Effective without direct management, yet welcome some structure and supervision as needed. So you can see it's all about showing the candidate, the potential candidate applicant, this is the type of person that we want. National Sales Manager, and for Biomet, and you can see here once again the same sort of structure. It's not rocket science what we're doing here. What we're doing is just changing the way traditional job ads are. So it's all about the first part is still the same, where you have the information about the organisation. Then it's about what experience and what qualifications you need, but the main part about it is what type of person, so the behaviours, the interests, the abilities that they have. These traditional the targeted job advertisements increase the number of fantastic candidates that apply for your role by 3 to 6 times. It's substantial. So in summary, the purpose of the attraction process, you cannot lose sight of what the main purpose is, and that is to select a future high-performing, fully engaged employee. That's what it's all about. It is without doubt the most important part of the process, because, as I said earlier, if you don't get someone applying for the job in the first place, then you can't get them to first interview, you can't get them to second interview, and you can't offer them the role. You need to get them to apply for the role. So your attraction process is critical, and as I said earlier, unfortunately most people don't put enough emphasis on the attraction process because they think it's all about the selection process. It's not. Without this, the selection process can't do its job. The challenges within the candidate pool, you've got to expand your candidate pool and not restrict your candidate pool by putting in artificial barriers. It is one of the biggest challenges where people will put in these artificial barriers and they don't need to put them in there. You've got a whole lot of different attraction strategies, and these are the main 4, but job advertisement, which most companies use, poaching from competitor organisations, peer recruitment, and then headhunting and search. Use whatever is going to be the best for you, but obviously for most people it's about the job advertisement, and today what we're really talking about is how to improve those job advertisements. Traditional job advertisements, they generally only target the unemployed and the disengaged employees. And you need to keep that in mind. Think to yourself, if that's all you need to target for your role, then that's fine. Then they just work perfectly for that. But if you want to target people that are highly engaged in their current job and are far more skilled and have far better behaviours, then they're the ones that you need to then start looking at for targeted job advertisements. Because as I said before, they increase your success rate of your quality candidates applying by 3 to 6-fold, and which is substantial. It's huge. By using targeted job advertisements, you have that opportunity of being spoiled for choice when you get down to your first interview. And imagine that, where every time you get to your first interview, you're interviewing 3 or 4 candidates, and at the end of the second interviews with your 3 or 4 candidates, you have a difficulty of which one to choose, because there are at least 2 that are very, very good. It's not a bad place to be. That is all I have for you today. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to James, and I will talk to you soon.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark. And let me speak from personal experience about the value of taking the approach that Mark has described. As some of you will be aware, for a period of time I was the Director of People and Culture with Living Social, and for a whole host of reasons that I won't bore you with now, our attraction strategies just were not working. So Mark came in to visit. We undertook a degree of benchmarking, and we were able to discern exactly what the qualities were of our high performers. And as a consequence of that, we rewrote our advertisements. And I will recall with some delight my recruitment team having a look at the ad that we had created and shaking their heads and saying, this isn't going to work. And the ad went live at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And by 6 p.m. that evening, we had had more people applying for the role than we would traditionally get over the space of a week. And as Mark also suggested to you, the challenge that we then faced was that the quality of the applicants was absolutely astronomical. It was something that the business had not experienced for quite some time, and resulted in us having a huge amount of success in attracting good calibre people into the organisation. So I can certainly vouch for the bona fides of what Mark shared with us today. Mark, we've had a couple of questions that have come in, and we've got a couple of minutes left if I can. One question that we've got is, you mentioned that organisations rely too heavily on academic qualifications. The question is, aren't qualifications a good indicator of someone's knowledge in their field?
It's a very good question, James. And recently we actually reprinted in one of our blogs, it was a couple of months ago, from the VP of people for Google. And their belief at Google was that the academic qualifications probably weren't even relevant at the selection stage, but they certainly weren't relevant after 12 months within the company. And I think what they have realised there is very, very true. Is there is this belief by some managers that an academic qualification makes somebody highly intelligent and highly astute, and it makes them smarter than somebody who doesn't have one. And the reality is that's just blatantly not true. There are a substantial number of people out there that never even started a tertiary qualification, or started and didn't finish, that are as smart, if not smarter, as astute, if not more astute, than their peers who carried on through the course. Do not let academic qualifications sway you thinking that they are better people, because that's not necessarily the case. It is behaviours that will drive more of the success of somebody than the academic qualifications, and that's what you really need to look at, and it's a very important point.
Thank you, Mark. Another question that's come in, and our last one for this afternoon. This has the potential to look like it might be a bit of a fad. What's the scientific basis, research if you like, that suggests that these so-called hardwiring attributes are a better way of predicting success?
Yeah, it goes back to the late 80s when Harvard Business Review released a study, and it'll never be repeated, and it's still highly valid now, even though it was 20, 30 years ago. And they studied 360,000 people across 20 years across 14 industries. And what they wanted to do was find out how you could predict future high performance within a role. And they looked at educational qualifications, experience, age, gender, and race. And what they found was none of those five were a statistical predictor of future high performance within a role, and especially not educational qualifications and experience. And as we know, that's your resume. And coupled with that, which we have now, is over 60% of resumes carry blatant lies or untruths in them, so it's a bit of a minefield all there by itself. What they did find, though, and really answering your question, James, was what they did find was that there was a statistical predictor, and that was where the person had fit to the role, and this is where the term fit first started. And their definition of fit was whether the person could handle the mental demands of the role, the environment and the people they work with, so essentially their behavioural traits, and whether they actually enjoy doing the job, so the occupational interests. And it is that the cognitive ability, so being able to handle the mental stresses of a role, and also the other side is not having too high a mental competence where you'll get bored in the role, because that is another problem. But where then the behavioural traits of the individual match the traits required by the role, and then importantly then they actually enjoy doing the job, which we know from all the studies on employee engagement that any increase in employee engagement will increase revenue, profitability and customer service levels. And you know what? All of us in business, they're the three things we definitely want every year.
Most definitely. Thank you. Great answer. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of this month's webinar, How to Attract Better Quality Candidates. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we look forward to the pleasure of your company next month. Please do follow us on our LinkedIn company page. You can see the link below. This webinar will be posted up on our website shortly, so for those of you that want to review it or share it with your friends, we would certainly recommend that you do that. So have a great day, and we'll look forward to seeing you again shortly. Cheers.
And thank you all from me as well. Thank you.